I'm passionate about it, and I want you to walk away tonight after an hour with some of your questions answered and maybe a different perspective of college admissions as a whole. I see on my first slide, this is part 2. So last week, we discussed standardized testing. If you weren't able to be here last week, those PowerPoint slides and the presentation are on our website, so you can access that. And we talked a lot about preparation and things like that, and that's part of my theme tonight is preparation. My second slide, as you see, is August 28th, 2026, and the significance of that date, 19 months from now, is when your child will be on a college campus, or if you're a junior in high school in this room, you'll be on a college campus in 19 months. And for some of you, that's a very sobering, wow, 19 months. But, you know, I look at it as an opportunity that we can work together as educators and as parents and as students to get you ready for that momentous day. As this journey begins, you know, your concerns may be varied. Having just gone through this myself, my son is a senior in high school right now in a neighboring district in MacArthur. And yeah, we had some different concerns. Some were academic, you know, it's going to be a step up academically. We had some financial concerns. We said, we don't know what the sticker price, to this day, and he's going to be on a college campus in less than 19 months. We don't know what the sticker price is actually going to be. So those are some concerns you may have. Some social concerns. Some of us are concerned about, will my son or daughter make friends on campus? What kinds of friends will they be? We have such nice friends in Wantagh. Will we do the same in college? So there's all kinds of things that run through our minds as we go through this. But I thought a real concern that parents tell me about is, okay, I'm starting this 19-month journey. What do I do now? Where do I start? For some of you, and hopefully you have started, and you've visited some colleges and you've had these conversations in your home, you've prepped for an SAT or an ACT, and you've gotten started a little bit, and that's great. But we're going to pretend like this is the first step of the journey tonight. What I like to do, as you can see in my fourth slide, let's make this big project, this big 19-month project, into a series of small steps, a series of small tasks that you can check off a list as a family and feel good about those checks and feel good about those steps as you progress through this process. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit about that step-by-step, month-by-month process. I'm going to talk about some terms that you may be unfamiliar with. Okay. But first, the first step is to determine if college is the right move for you as a student, for you as a family. And there are alternatives. I think we're very college frenzied here in Nassau County, and we say, well, you know, that's where a lot of students go, but it's not like that everywhere. And I think it's good to have that conversation. Is this the right move? Do we need a gap year? Some students take that 1 year. They say, I'm just not ready, or I'm burnt from high school, and I need 6 months to work, earn some money, travel, whatever, you know, and then start in the spring of the following year or something like that. So is college the right thing? A lot of our students do look at the trades. College isn't for everybody. So if you're in this room or if you're watching at home, I'm going to make the assumption that you've made a decision that college is the direction you want to go in, but having had that conversation first. The percentage of students in the United States who earn a bachelor's degree after 6 years. Now, a bachelor's degree is normally earned in 4 years, but even after 6 years, is only 62%. The Wantagh High School average is 78%. So we're proud of that, but still 2 out of 10 of our high school graduates from right here in Wantagh High School who go to college do not earn a degree after 6 years. And that's worrisome to me. I want to, I begin with that because, again, after we've talked about preparation in the short time I've been speaking so far, we have 19 months. You, the juniors in this room, you have 19 months to work on some of those things, some of those behavioral milestones, some of the independence, and some of the self-care things. When I poll college admissions representatives, and I say, what makes a successful college student? They gave me those 3 characteristics that you see on that slide, which are A, independence. And that means you don't need a prompt to get up out of bed. You don't need a prompt to do your work. You don't need a prompt. Like how high does the dirty laundry pile have to be before you put it in the washing machine? You're starting to become independent. And those are the kinds of things, you may not be there yet. But like I said, you have 19 months. And we as parents, myself included, are working on those kinds of things with our kids each day. The second thing that college reps say is very, very important for successful college students is learning how to study. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, many of our students say that they don't need to study that much, that they do well with some minimal studying. I really hoped for my own son that he would get a class that would give him a real run for his money. And he found some of those classes, and he hated them. But you know what? They made him adapt. They made him adapt to being a better high school student. It taught him that, you know, there are some things that I really do need to go over before the test, maybe a couple of days out. Those are the kinds of things. So right now, the juniors in the room, as you're picking your senior year classes and you're saying, well, next year doesn't count as much, so maybe I'll take it a little easy. Don't. Take some of those classes that will challenge you and help you become a better college student. The third characteristic college representatives cite in successful college students is, I'll put it in a nutshell, your ability to handle a bad day. Sounds simple, but some students don't handle a bad day very well, and they do some risky things or they do some unhealthy things. And so keep an eye out, you juniors in the room and you parents, of how is my child handling bad news? How is my child handling stress? And we're going to talk about stress in a minute. And what are those coping skills like, and how can we talk about that? And how do I model that as an educator and as a parent? You know, those coping strategies. Okay. So another philosophy of mine, in addition to preparation, is that we do a lot of work to get kids into college. And parents that ask me that all the time. What would I do to get my kid into and they say a good college, quote unquote, good college? So we're really and in a very good way, it's all well-meaning, but we're very obsessed with getting our kids in. And I want us to be equally obsessed with getting our kids to stay. But the message in my slide there with the opinion of 2 Franks is, I've seen some very good students, some very talented students, wonderful human beings who were absolutely heartbroken by getting that email from a college that said, you're not accepted. And it hurt me. Over the years, I said, you're a wonderful student. You're going to go to another college and you're going to light it up. You're going to be great. But it was heartbreaking for them. And so I've developed that philosophy, and it is shared. I read this book by Frank Bruni. It's called Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be. And it's a compilation of different stories of people that you may know, celebrities and people who are successful in business and politics and so on, who were rejected by that top college. And they went on to great things. And his philosophy, and I share it, is that it's not so much where you go to college. And we're going to discuss a lot of that next week, of where you're going to go to college. It's not so much where you go to college, but develop an attitude of how I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go to college and I'm going to be friendlier. I'm going to make friends. I'm going to take opportunities. I'm going to look at internships. I'm going to get out of my comfort zone. If I go to college with that kind of an attitude, I'm going to light it up no matter where I go. And I do share that philosophy, and so much that I've read the book, and each year I raffle it off. So there's someone in this room who, on the back of your junior timeline, does someone have the name Frank Bruni? You do. Well, you win the book by Frank Bruni. Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be.
Thank
I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Thank you. So, so as you start this college search, and that's one of the first things you'll do is you're going to start to look at different colleges. I want you to have that open mind, and don't look at the bumper sticker. I call it the bumper sticker, you know, because kids only know what they've seen, let's say, either on TV or on bumper stickers, and they say, well, that's a name recognition college. That's a quote-unquote good college. There are a lot of really hidden gems out there that we can discuss, you with your counselor, and pick the right school where you can really flourish. My next slide is really about understanding our kids. And this is very important. And juniors in the room, you may even add to this list, but there are differences in your junior year than there were in your sophomore year. And yes, grades are more important and your classes are harder. You are asked to take an SAT. And juniors in the room, just raise your hand if you've already sat for an SAT or an ACT. Raise your hand. Many of you have. Okay. So imagine some of the adults in this room. We asked you right now as an adult, on a given Saturday, you're going to sit down for a 2.5-hour test that's going to be largely determining your future. That's a ton of pressure. It really is. And I want the kids in the room to understand that too. Take these exams, prepare for them, take a deep breath, do as well as you can. But that's an added stressor on our kids. You have different social stressors. You're learning how to drive, which I think is amazing. It wasn't until I started to take my son around the neighborhood and I said, he's operating a machine he has no reference point to. And so many of you are doing the same. And you're learning how to operate this machine on top of these other things, on top of the grades, on top of the SATs, and so on. It's going to open up your social life once you start driving and things like that. The world is changing so rapidly and so dramatically. And then, to put a cherry on the cake and add to things, we're going to ask you to choose a college where you're going to spend 4 years of your life. And choose maybe a major or an endeavor or something like that. So I don't discount the enormity of what's on the backs of our kids. Now, students in the room, this is not to say that we're letting you off the hook in any way. We are going to be with you. We're going to support you. We're going to understand you. But you should be the one sitting at the computer. You should be the one doing the work. And we'll get to that in a second. 19 months. 19 months. Let's split it up, and we'll say you have 6 months to figure out where you're going to apply. Just where you're going to apply. That's not so bad, right? So you're going to go to the college fair on April 1st. We'll talk about that too next week. And you're going to, go on Naviance. You go on Big Future, which is on the College Board website. You'll start to develop a list of colleges. We're going to go over that next week. But all you need to do in the next 6 months, in addition to doing well on your AP exams and your Regents exams and learning how to drive and all those other things, taking the SAT perhaps again, you're going to simply pick 12 colleges. That's the average. Average Wantagh student is going to apply to about 12 colleges. Some apply to more. This year I had a record breaker. He's in the 40s. I don't recommend it at all. But some students apply to 1 or 2. They know where they want to go. They apply. They get in. They're done. They're lucky. But for most of you, it's going to be about a dozen colleges, and that's all you need to do over the next 6 months. That's February, March, April, May, June, and July. Fair enough? Okay. Then you're going to have 3 months. The Common Application is an online tool, and it will open up on August 1st. I hate to keep bringing up my son, but it is relevant, and it's a journey that like I said, I went through recently. On August 1st of this past summer, I had to make an appointment with him because in the summer, like many of the students in this room, they're busy. They're sleeping or they're socializing or they're doing something like that. So I said, when is a good day or time when we could sit at the dining room table together and we'll look at the Common App? And we struck a time. Okay. I didn't sit in front of the computer. He did. He opened the Chromebook. He made his own login. He groped through the first few things, name, address, that kind of stuff. And then he said, okay, that's enough for today. Tomorrow we'll come back and we'll do some more. We'll do some more on the day after that. And by the end of the week, we had 90% of the Common App filled out. Okay, why do I bring this up? Because if you, the student, is in charge, you're going to make a better decision and you're going to have less stress. If somebody else is doing it for you, and I've had many students in that position by very well-meaning parents, but then the student said, well, I don't know what's going on. I don't know my password. I don't know my username. I don't know what to do next. But if you're the one sitting at the computer, parents sitting next to you. And as a matter of fact, we are going to have, it could be August 18th, but don't write it down yet. But I'm planning it for August 18th. Is going to be a Common App workshop. And the guidance counselors and myself will be in the high school library. And you come in with your Chromebook. And by that time, you should be coming in with all of that easy stuff filled out. Your name and your address and all of that. And then we're going to answer your questions and have you finish that Common App. We're going to have an essay workshop at that time too. So we're going to help you. But you have 3 solid months, August, September, and most of October, to finish that. The Common App and the supplementals. Anybody in this room know what a supplemental application is? Ever hear of it, Liam? No? Okay, supplemental application. Some students, they'll finish the Common App and they'll say, oh, I'm done, right? No, you're not done. Then you go to that college page and they say, oh, now we have our own essay. We have the Binghamton essay, or we have the Duke essay. We have some different questions that relate just to our school, and you'll do that. But then you're done. You know, you should have your essay drafted, looked at by an English teacher. We'll talk more about those nuances next week, but suffice to say, 6 solid months to come up with 12 colleges as a family. Finish up your SATs. 3 months to finish the Common App and your essay. So far, so good? Not so bad? If you do that, again, I'm a big believer in let's eliminate the stress that we can. If you can get to November 1st, having handed in a transcript request form to your counselor, and you're done with college applications, supplementals, did a few visits, you're going to feel good. You're going to feel very good. If you aren't at that point, you're going to feel stressed. So that's why over the next 6 months, let us help you get to this point, the next 9 months. Okay, the 6 months after that, we're going to have a senior college night in September, as we always do. We're going to talk about what seniors do. But after you apply, then it's going to be things like the FAFSA. Our 4th night on this cycle is going to be financial aid. You fill out the FAFSA. And again, students sit at the computer. Mom and dad sits next to you. The FAFSA takes 15 minutes, unless you own a business or a farm or something. The FAFSA is pretty good. The CSS profile that we'll talk about in 2 weeks, that's a little bit more involved. But those are things we do in the winter of your senior year. Then what happens is you're going to look at our scholarships page. Now is when I get a scholarship every 2 or 3 days. And I look at it, I make sure it's legitimate, I put it on the guidance website, and that's what seniors are doing now. I met with a senior today, and he's looking through, you know, whatever scholarships we have. So the profile. Now another little item that has become much more prominent is the SSAR or the SRAR. It's the same thing. And all that is, now tomorrow when these slides are on the website, that SRAR is going to be highlighted, and you can click on it and you can see what I'm talking about. It's basically you putting in every course you've taken in high school and the final grade. It's tedious. You're going to need your unofficial transcript next fall, which we'll furnish for you, but you could do that in a half hour. Kids complain about it, but it takes about a half hour. It's no big deal. Okay? So, any questions so far? Yes? About. Okay, let me repeat the question. It's a good question. The average Wantagh student applies to about 12 colleges. I would say that's about the average. And then supplemental applications go for each college. Yes and no. There are some colleges that do not have supplemental applications. And they're attractive to our students because they don't have to write additional essays. There are many colleges who will give you a supplemental essay, a supplemental series of questions. And again, it's tedious, but if you're in control, students, and you say, you know what, I'm going to do Binghamton's tonight. I don't have too much homework. Saturday, I'm going to do Wake Forest. I'm going to do that one. And then, you spread it out for yourself, and then each of these, and that's why we're giving you 3 months. We're going to give you 3 months to do these applications and supplementals. The supplementals, and let me key upon that. You're not going to have to fill out your name and address and all that stuff all over again. It's just there's going to be a specific essay or series of essays, shorter essays, that will pertain just to that school. Sometimes you can use the same essay you used for Binghamton and use it for another college. But be careful and take Binghamton out of that essay before you put it in another college's supplemental. But I found that a lot of the supplemental essays have to do with that particular college. I'll give you an example. Boston University said, what specifically did you like about Boston University? And it's a 200-word essay, which is what, 2 paragraphs? Paragraph and a half, right? So you would say, well, I liked the fact that it was in downtown Boston and stuff like that. So you couldn't use that Binghamton essay for your Boston University essay. Did I answer your question adequately? Okay. Any other questions so far? Okay. Let's see, where are we? Okay, yeah, last page here. 7 months as a junior, September, October as a senior, your applications should be over. Now, that doesn't mean that students haven't come to me or to our counselors in December and said, I got something in an email from, name a college, Elon College, and it's free to apply. Do you mind if I apply? I said, sure, apply. So you might get some of those. So your application phase might be extended a little bit. That's okay. But by and large, we want you to feel good about your level of completion by November 1st. Now, something I should add, November 1st is when most of our students have applied to most of their colleges, because the early deadlines for the colleges are November 1st. Now, early programs include early decision and early action. Does anyone know the difference? Anyone want to take a stab at that, Liam? Exactly. One is binding. Early decision is binding. It's a contract. So if you apply early decision to any school that has an early decision program, Miami, let's say, if they accept you, you have to go. You're going, regardless of the cost. So it's rather a risky endeavor, unless it's your dream school and you know you can afford it. But we do see many students getting accepted off of that early decision list. So if it's something you want to look at as a tool, we'll help you through that. Early action is the same, but it's not binding. So you can apply to multiple schools early action, unless they're early action exclusive, which is basically early decision, but it's by November 1st. Now, what we in the guidance office need, and this is standard throughout Long Island, is a 2-week period to process your application. So that means if your deadline is November 1st, you need to apply by November 1st, but you need to give us notice with a transcript form by, let's say, the 16th of October. So you still have that time up until November 1st, but you want to give us notice with that transcript request form by the, I would say the middle of the month, you know, October 16th-ish, all right? Okay. Yes, question. Okay, good question. So and I like that word, operational, because that's what it is. We hit the ground running. Students come back from the summer, they're now seniors. We have a senior college night, it's usually the first week of school. And we go over the nuances of the Common App, transcript request form, SRAR, and all that stuff. A week later, we're going to have senior college workshops, much like what you just did with your scheduling, small groups with your counselor, and the counselor is going to go over these procedures that I'm going to outline in a second. So we give it to you again. And basically what that is our transcripts are ready to go by October 1st. And we need that time because you get a copy of your transcript and then you check it. There are times when students come back to us and they say, I actually got a 98 in gym that year, not a 97. Now, how would we know that? The students know that. We check it, say, oh, okay, yes, that is true. That was a clerical error. You get the point. And we sometimes find anomalies. So it takes us a couple of weeks to make sure that those transcripts and those averages are perfect. Yes. Yep. It would have to have been an error. I'm only using that as an example of an error. It almost never happens. But yeah, if a report card from June wasn't looked at and the student says, oh, that was supposed to be a 98 or something like we'll find it. Sometimes it's a weighting issue of how courses are weighted, and we'll calculate it, we'll find it out. Very rarely do we find any errors at all. But, so procedurally, we introduce students to the transcript request form. It's on yellow paper at that meeting, at that group meeting, senior college workshops. So then they understand how to fill out the form. It's very easy. It's their name and their, we ask for like your Common App credentials. So sometimes we like to check your essay. That's sometimes why we need those 2 weeks. And we will, you list the names of the colleges, the due dates, stuff like that. And we like for the student to give us, you say operationally, and I love that, we don't want you to leave it on our desk. We want you to give it to us so we talk about it. Because sometimes a student will apply, let's say, to Buffalo State University, when they really meant to apply to the university at Buffalo. And there are things like that. I'll just use that as an example, but we want to go over it with you. We don't like making mistakes. We don't make them. We don't make mistakes because we take the time. We want you to take the time with us to make sure those things are accurate, okay? Once we have the transcript request form, you should have applied by then, but if you didn't, that's still okay. We do our part. We're going to check, make sure your letters are there. We're going to make sure that your essay is good. We might ask you to tweak your essay. Now, as far as letters of recommendation are concerned, you would ask 2 teachers. We're going to go over that next week, but we could talk about it now. You're going to ask at least 2 teachers. I would say just ask 2. They will write you a letter of recommendation. They will send it to me through Naviance. It stays in Naviance with your transcript and your counsel letter. And when we get that okay, and it's signed by you, the student, we will send letters of recommendation, school profile, transcript, and all of that before the deadline. So that's how it works. Let's talk a minute about letters of recommendation. Any questions about letters? This spring, if you asked Mr. Tallerine now, he would say, go away. He said, I'm not writing you a letter of recommendation now. He's a nice man, but he's not going to write a letter for you now. But he may write it for you in June. He may write it for you in September. Between now and then, I would say right around the AP exams, April, May, you can ask Mr. Tallerine, Mrs. LaPera, Ms. Stewart, whoever you had. I wouldn't even say who you've had a good relationship with. I want a teacher letter to include how you were inquisitive in class, how you worked with groups in class, how you contributed to class discussions. Those are the kinds of things that make good letters. There are times when I'll go to a teacher and I'll say, this is a great letter. Was there anything we can include about, like, an anecdote? I like the teacher letters to be anecdotal, because it's one thing to say, John is a great student, but it's a better thing to say, John works really well with others. An example of this was when we did a project on such and such, and he did this part of the project. It could be succinct like that, but it just paints such a more powerful picture. So the more you give the teachers over the next few months to write about, the better that letter is going to be. So be inquisitive, be cooperative in class, raise your hand, get involved in a class discussion, be a leader in your group, all those kinds of things, and then ask that teacher for a letter, and it'll be a much more powerful letter. Okay? Questions? Yeah. Sometimes. That is a good point. The question is, would a teacher ever say that you're a nice person and good student, but someone else might write a better letter? Yes. Sometimes that does happen, and I appreciate that in our teachers, because sometimes a student will have a great rapport and relationship with a teacher, but that teacher doesn't have those kinds of anecdotes to share. And so they might say, you might be better off. Or another scenario is that a student says, I want to major in engineering. So they're asking an English teacher. And that English teacher might say, you know what, you really should ask your math teacher or your science teacher. So yeah, we try to be really honest with students. There is a form that we have students fill out if they choose to, which goes to the teacher, and it pretty much says, this is what class I took with you. This is my favorite part of your class. This is some memorable moments. So it gives the teacher a little bit more to write about. Okay? Other questions? Yes? Good question. How many letters should a student get? 2. 2 teacher letters, 1 counselor letter. Counselors write them automatically. So I would ask you to ask 2 teachers. Now, what if you have a coach that you are very close with that would write you a good letter, or scout leader, clergy person, something like that? I would say this: have that individual email the counselor, because the college is not going to accept a 4th letter, so that letter is never going to be sent. However, let's suppose that that coach says, wow, this kid was so resilient and tried so hard, was a leader with us and all that kind of stuff. The counselor can include that in their letter. So that's the kind of thing, like if you do have that kind of relationship with a scout leader, clergy, someone out of school, or someone here like a coach, or I get them from Mr. Aviles. I don't know if you can hear the jazz band behind us. They're practicing. Sometimes I get them from Mr. Aviles and Mr. Cochran of anecdotes like that, and we love to include those things in our letters. So you don't have to exclude them. They don't have to write you a letter of recommendation, but if they would, you would ask them to include some comments and send them to us. That would be great. Okay. Anyone have questions about this process as we go into the senior year? Really, let's key tonight on the process of the 6 months. We're going to talk more about the first 6 months next week when we talk about how colleges choose you and how you choose them. So I hope that you make it to us next week again. But I listed some terms just as some prompts if anyone had questions about any of those topics, such as SRAR, weighted GPA, study abroad programs, accelerated programs. Yes, Liam. Okay, great question. Many of our students apply and attend college, and they have an IEP or they have a 504 plan. With your permission, we send that IEP to college, or you bring it to college. 99 times out of 100, the college is going to honor whatever's on that IEP, but it's going to be done in a different way. There's going to be a different kind of testing room. And what I would suggest then, Liam, and others, is to have a conversation with the college and their resource center about those nuances, about, where would I take a test? Or if I get extended time, how would that, what would that look like in college, and things of that sort. So, but we've had tremendous success with students with disabilities, going to college. But it takes a little bit more homework. You have to research some of these plans. Hofstra's, I'll bring up Hofstra as just an example. It's a very extensive program, and you have other programs, let's say at SUNY New Paltz, that are much more laissez-faire and much more hands-off, and some parents and some students prefer that, and some students and parents prefer more of an omnipotent approach. So you're going to find these, and that's part of the next 6 months of researching where you want to apply. Okay? Other questions? Yes, sir. Good. Okay, weighted GPA, unweighted GPA. Okay. What you see right now on Parent Portal and on your child's report cards and all those things, that's an unweighted average. So if a student gets an 80 in English 11R, it's an 80, and that's what we calculate. When a student turns to be a senior, what we do is then we weight those grades. So if a student is in that English 11R class and earns an 80, we multiply that 80 by 1.05. So for weighting purposes, that's an 84. If a student was in an honors course, or for this group also, well, let's just keep it at honors. It could have been English 9H. It could have been Wind Ensemble is an H course. Honora La Voce is an honors course. If a student earns an 80 in that class, when they turn a senior, we're going to weight those grades. That 80 is multiplied by 1.1. It's an 88. For students in AP classes, students in this room have taken AP classes. If that student earns an 80, it's multiplied by 1.15. That's a 92. So you can see how, and we report both. On our transcript, we report, and you'll get this as seniors next fall. We're going to hand you an unofficial copy of your transcript. It's going to have an unweighted average, and it's going to have a weighted average. And we actually weight our grades pretty high. And now that we're kind of grandfathered in, we always will. but they're pretty generous. So many of our students have weighted averages over 100. Does that answer your question, sir? Now, question that goes along with that is, which one do I use when I'm applying to college? The weighted average. Whenever you can, use the higher one. Okay. Other questions? I want to talk a little bit. Oh, did you have a question, ma'am? No, go ahead. You read my mind. That was what I was just going to discuss, was college level classes. Because that feeds into the other topic there, which is accelerated programs. So let's talk about the college classes. College classes, different from AP. Advanced placement is an internationally recognized level of rigor, high rigor. College level classes, dual enrollment, same thing, not quite as widely recognized. They're still hard, they're still challenging, but they're not AP. So, if you want an easier path to 3 college credits, you would take College Spanish 5 rather than AP Spanish, okay? It's going to cost you some money. It's going to cost more money because you're going to buy those credits from Adelphi. But in my estimation, it's worth it for the accelerated program. So let me give you an idea. If a student wants to go into an accelerated program in college in occupational therapy, physical therapy, any of those kinds of things, where they're going to do a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in 5 or 6 years, that's intense. So it's nice to have maybe a semester or more taken off your plate. And college level classes are very, very good at doing that, because most colleges will take that college level Spanish 5, or they'll take college level virtual enterprise, and so on. So, and now as seniors, if you're looking for an elective, you may want to choose something like that and make sure that the college you're applying to is going to take that credit. That we can't always guarantee. But those questions, and I appreciate the question, it fits right in with what I wanted to discuss, which is those credits have saved families in this community many thousands of dollars, because you can take off almost a year of college. That's quite a bit of money. So they've been really, really very, very good for us. But you will pay for the credits up front. And when you graduate from high school and those credits are finalized, let's say it's Syracuse University or LIU, then you go on our website, there's a link for CW Post or Adelphi, and it's just a transcript request. And then you send that transcript to the college of your choice. Okay? Okay, other questions? Okay. My design for these evening programs is that we do 45 minutes to an hour a night, because there's so many things to talk about that to do it all in one night, we would be here for 3 or 4 hours, and I think it wouldn't make any sense. So I'm glad you are adhering to this. We could certainly discuss more tonight, but I wanted to kind of conclude by 8 o'clock. I know that everybody worked a full day, but I'm certainly here for questions. Yes. Oh, social media impact has been a double-edged sword. It's both good and bad. I've been shown some TikTok videos that made good sense. They've been very good sound advice that students have shown me and said, yeah, I saw this guy on TikTok and you know, it was a college admissions guy, and I said, yeah, I'm not opposed to that. Other things, you know, colleges have social media pages, and that's been very good for our students to get an idea of what the flavor is like on campus. It's been a good thing. But you know, I'm always wary of the impact of social media and its potential for harm. So, I always say to students, be careful to whom you give your personal information, your home address and your cell phone number and anything like that. So that would be my only word of caution to the students in the room. You can get good advice from social media. When they start asking you for identification or for money, it's not legit. Then it's dangerous. Okay? Yes, sir. Yes. That's a great segue to next week. There's so many schools, and you mentioned biology. So you look up biology on Naviance, and you come up with 100 schools that have biology. And that's why there are going to be other factors that we're going to talk about next week that would include location, and it will include things like financial aid and other intangibles, things of that sort, the size of the school, things like that. But I have to say, on both ends, there's a degree of arbitrariness in how families choose colleges and how colleges choose our kids. And we'll get into that more next week, but I've had a lot of conversations with students where the kid says, yeah, I want to apply to Wake Forest. And I said, where did you hear of Wake Forest? Well, they're Division I, and I saw them on, playing basketball on CBS, on a Sunday morning against Duke or something. And I'm like, oh, that's one way to choose, But sometimes kids, they go with what they know, and they talk to each other and like, oh, that's a great school. How do they know it's a great school? And so many students have said that to me too, like, yeah, I've heard that's really a great school. I've heard that's not a great school. Well, who'd you hear that from? Many times it's each other, But how do we really determine one biology program from another? What I like to do, to answer your question fully, sir, is I like to do what I call secondary research. We've done preliminary research. We're going to talk about this next week of you kind of have schools that fit your bill in a very loose way. It's in a certain region of the country, it's a certain cost, and this and that. But now I want to see how many graduates from that biology program are in graduate programs. What percentage are in pre-medical programs, and where are they? How many are stayed on campus to do graduate work, research, things of that sort? And you kind of get an idea of, wow, that's, that seems to be a thriving campus. What kind of firms recruit on campus for your biology students? These are legitimate questions. What I really want to do between this week and next week is prepare you to go to the April 1st college fair. Because when I had this experience with my son, I said, well, I used to run college fairs. I still do, so this is a piece of cake. But again, I made him talk. And, it was kind of like the Christmas Story movie where Ralphie's waiting online for a long time, and he finally gets to see Santa, and he freezes, and he doesn't know what to ask. It's a lot like that when you go to a college fair. You're online for Binghamton, and it's 10 people long, and you finally get up there, and you say, I forgot what I was going to So what I like to try to do with families is try to brainstorm on some questions. What is the housing situation for freshmen? What is... Can sophomores stay on campus? Is that, when do undergraduates have to move off campus and things of that sort? How many different meal plans do you have? You'd be amazed. Some colleges have a lot of different meal plans. Maybe they'll tell you more about the biology program if they know the answer. Another question I wanted to ask at these college fairs is, if my son applies as a bio major and is denied, is he put in the regular pool? And that's something, again, you think about these things once you're in the process. Another philosophy of mine is you're not so much going to gain answers, you're going to gain more questions. You may not even know what to ask yet, but as you're going through the process, you're starting to write these down. Like, yeah, that's a key point. What if you apply as a bio major, you don't get in? Are you eligible to stay on campus and be part of another program? things like that. So we'll go over more next week, but, I really do appreciate the questions tonight. They were all really good. Any others? Next week is a Wednesday. The only reason we're doing Tuesday is because of the Lunar New Year tomorrow. Okay. So I thank you for coming tonight. I'll stick around for your personal questions, and I hope to see you next week. Thank you.